Okay,
And there's the red light?
there's the red light, okay?
Yeah, if that's
Okay.
there, that means it's recording.
So she'll,
Okay.
and so then we'll,
Consolidated all our ag districts into one district. So we have Ag District 1. So this will be included if approved today. And that's just a description. Second parcel is again owned by Steve and Victoria Clark. It's on County Highway 2 in the town of Unadilla. And it is a total of, let's just say, 51.25 acres. Again, same justification, and both committees recommended it be included in Ag District 1. Is there any questions on those two proposals?
My question would be this. Does this change the tax status of these properties and that their taxation doesn't change
Not
that?
unless they apply for an exemption. An exemption is only to an agricultural business that generates more than $10,000 in
Correct.
revenue. They have to have their soils tested,
Mhm.
soil and water,
Mhm.
and then the exemption is based on the quality of the production. So, no, just by including them in an ag district does not change it.
Thank you.
Okay. The last parcel is, I'm sorry, my eyes are getting really bad. Oh, Correale. Mario and Pam Correale were an applicant, they were an applicant last year. Unfortunately, with the paper shuffle, it did not get processed with Ag and Markets, so they asked to include it again this year. So last year, you actually approved the same parcel, which is on County Highway 39 in the town of Worcester. It's 170.6 acres. Their justification is it's a resubmission as requested Ag and Markets previously approved for inclusion in 2017, and we recommended that to also be in the Ag district. So once you decide on this, include these inclusions, we then submit it to the Ag and Markets Division, and it will be included in the state Ag district maps, and then they will be included in our overlying parcel rep information as well.
Just there yesterday.
Any questions? Thank you.
Any comments? Hearing none, thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing.
That's what you need to hear.
And call the order of the regular meeting Wednesday, March 6th. Roll call of members.
Frazier? Farwell? Here. Clark? Here. Stammel?
Here.
Kennedy?
Here.
Overacker?
Here.
Bliss?
Here.
Marietta?
Here.
McCarty?
Here.
Wilbur?
Here.
Poenick?
Here.
Martini? Here. Lappin?
Here.
Shannon?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Privilege of the floor. Remind you, please try to keep your promise to 3 minutes. Yes, sir.
My name is Edward Delia, and I live in the hamlet of Welcome in the town of New Lisbon. I see it's resolution 105 about adopting this climate change business. I don't know, what is it, bottom line, what is it going to cost us? Like I said the last month, they dangle a carrot. That's the governor's favorite way of doing things. Just to give you an idea, decrease energy use, yes, that's applaudable. City of Oneonta with their LED street lighting fixtures, my estimation, that's an excellent idea. It's workable and it will work. Whatever you do, don't do the traffic signals with the LEDs. They did that in New York City. An outfit I worked for, the parent company, they did street lighting and they did traffic maintenance. They made tens of millions of dollars redoing the street lights years ago, all LEDs. Then came the first bad winter. The shrouds used around the street lights, they packed up with snow. You didn't have traffic lights at various intersections. There was a lot of accidents, collisions and all, injuries. And guess what? The city and the taxpayers probably paid a pretty price for that because the city created the situation. Wellsback Electric, that was the outfit doing a lot of the work. They had to go back retrofit every one of these supposedly green fixtures. They had to put heaters in them, which there was never a problem because they used to be 32-watt traffic bulbs, and those bulbs created just enough of heat in there that you never had that situation for years and years and years. So they went with the green initiative, and guess what? It cost them big time, so they had to put heaters in every individual fixture. It cost them another, God knows how many millions of dollars the contract was for that, to bail their rear ends out of the situation. And where was it? No savings whatsoever. Zero. Because putting heaters back in, you're just burning energy. So that all went out the window. I'd say another item is, the governor wants to kill off nuclear energy. That's zero emissions. That's zero emissions, plain and simple. Why is he doing that? Because it's in his backyard and he's making political points, just like his old man did when he shut down Shoreham. Inside information I had on that, he shut it down just before the Nuclear Regulatory Commission was going to authorize 100% output. They were on a limited, production, about 25%, and this is from a supervisor that was with Lilco, the company that Mario Cuomo bankrupted. Wind power, while it's a good idea here and there, I don't know about it because you have the issues of endangered species. President Obama exonerated California. They're allowed to kill bald eagles over there. It's collateral damage, and I guess if a condor happens to fly into it, there's only a couple hundred of them in existence in the world, that's not a problem either. Do we have that exemption here? Do we have a get out of jail free card, or is it going to cost us taxpayers in the pocketbook big time? Solar, why are we limited on solar to the output based on your electric bill? I'd like to know that, because I did, last summer I had a gentleman, I ran into him, I think it was at Home Depot, and I requested a thing, to look into it, the viability of it. I knew it wasn't too feasible, it doesn't work too well around here. It's beautiful down south and everything. The gentleman laid the stuff out. I had to provide electric bills to him and everything. And then he lays out the thing on his computer, and it's only using a little portion of my roof, And I says, well, hey, you got all of this rest of this area that's in the sun. He says, we're not allowed to put where you create energy that you're going to be selling to NYSEG. He says, we're not allowed to do that. He says, that's a no-no. He said, you're very efficient with your electric. He says, your usage, he says, you got a low usage for your house. And he says, I have to go by that in determining the amount of solar panels that I'm allowed to put on your roof. And he said, basically, what they're doing with it, in my estimation, they're trying to make money off of it big time because they try to promote loans on it rather than outright purchasing of it. And then you have about a 20-year lifespan for the solar panels, and then they have to be replaced. So, where are we gaining with a lot of this? It becomes a major problem. One item with the nuclear, going back years, it's coming around again. There was a scientist that developed a new system with it. Well, it's not a new system. The system dates back to the 60s. It was developed by the scientists in the 60s. It's, liquid salt system. Back then, it wasn't cost efficient. This professor came up with a new way of addressing the situation, and refining it, and it's economically feasible. Why not venture into that? Why not venture into tidal? The tides always were moving. The waves are moving. Utilize some of that energy. There's a lot of various things that can be done, but don't just jump into something that, how do we know it's going to pay? It's gonna pay green to what the cronies up in Albany have invested in their stocks. That's what it's gonna pay green on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Would you like to speak?
I will speak, but
No, go ahead, please.
did he call? Russell, sit down.
Good morning, everyone. Some of us are a little tired because we were in Oneonta very late last night. My name is Nicole Dillingham. I live in Springfield Center, New York. I'm board president of Otsego 2000. I am coming here today to talk to you about the work of the Industrial Development Agency, which is under your jurisdiction, under your umbrella. You appoint every board member of that organization, and you fund that organization. And I am not sure that you are aware of what the organization is doing in the name of the Otsego County. About 6 months ago, and I was here to talk about it in October, we first got word that the Industrial Development Agency of Otsego County had submitted a grant application to build a decompressor station to be fueled by bomb trucks in the town of Oneonta. That was news to most of you in this room. I know that because many people expressed shock that they had not been kept informed of that. So, fast forward more than 6 months now. Last night in Oneonta, in the city of Oneonta, as lead agency, what was the subject of discussion? A draft generic environmental impact statement submitted in the name of the same IDA, the same applicant. This draft generic environmental impact statement contained no discussion of the other project that they are planning at Pony Farm. No discussion of the decompressor station, no discussion whatsoever of how energy was going to be supplied, even electrical energy was going to be supplied. These are extremely serious omissions from a draft generic environmental impact statement. First and foremost, let me just say, and this is something that should concern all of you, it deprives the public of a meaningful comment. We found out about it. You knew about it because someone came and talked to you about it, but is the IDA reporting to you? Is the IDA telling you what it is planning in your name? Does it tell you that it, by the way, we didn't include it in the GEIS because we just didn't think we should mention it because people might be upset? How does this even happen in a county that has people working on it who are as diligent as you, as generous with your time, as educated, as committed to this environment? How does this happen? That is a rhetorical question. I guess I don't expect a response. So let me just say that, why am I here? You can say, well, this is not a matter for the county board. It's a matter of home rule in Oneonta. I've heard that said now. It is a matter for this county board because you control this IDA. You fund them. You appoint their board. You can't just say we'd have nothing to do with the Otsego County Industrial Development Agency. It's formed under New York state law, under your jurisdiction. You can't deny knowledge of it. I'm particularly troubled also because the IDA is proceeding when the IDA knows that Oneonta is in the process of preparing a comprehensive plan. IDA hasn't waited for that comprehensive plan to be done. It's going on apparently right at the same time, and it's moving ahead, the decompressor plan. At the same time, this county has just got an enormous outpouring of support and congratulations for having formed an energy task force specifically to look at energy needs county-wide for the whole region. This is a wonderful thing that you have done. It's going to take some time because it's an ambitious plan. You've invited so many talented people from our community to participate. You are truly to be congratulated for that. How can that proceed? How could a plan for energy needs in the entire county proceed while your IDA is proposing to build a $17.5 million decompressor station, a $50 to $100 million expansion of the DeRuyter pipeline, a power plant to supply electricity of who knows what costs? They're planning to redevelop the roads and build bridges. Who's going to pay for that? Does anyone look at what it will cost the citizens of this county if this GIS proceeds to be accepted? Does anyone care what your IDA is proposing and at what cost? Who is going to pay for it? I know you've given the IDA close to $200,000 just recently as part of the budgeting process. Where is that money going to be spent? What is going on with the IDA? I believe we need to have you ask them to come and give us a report about why the same agency is proceeding on 2 or 3 fronts. They're proceeding to submit a GIS, which doesn't discuss this, and then they're proceeding to get a grant application with the Southern Tier 8 to develop it, and they're also proceeding without any recognition of the cost that this will impose on the community. These are very, very serious matters. They deserve your attention. Thank you very, very much.
Hi, my name is Keith Shue. I'm a technical advisor for Otsego 2000. And thank you for letting me speak this morning. I'm going to support several of the things that Nicole Dillingham just stated. I have the privilege of serving on the newly formed Energy Task Force that Otsego County is putting together, and I'm glad that that has happened. However, I also am deeply concerned that that actions are happening, events are taking place that could frankly obviate the point of having that good task force effort. You know, the task force is supposed to be looking at all aspects of energy use in the county. However, if projects move full steam ahead without taking into consideration that we have a task force to look at these things, if those projects move ahead in the meantime, such as the rail yard development, which would put potentially tremendous demand on energy in our region, adding to the demand that we already have, then it really undermines the value of having that task force. And I want to see that task force be successful. So, in addition to the rail yard project, there are other speculative things that are going on, like Nicole mentioned, the decompressor station. That's something that the IDA had put forward as an idea in the past, and it's ironic to me that given the massive public outcry and concern expressed by that, because of the secrecy that was involved with the IDA's behavior on that project, you'd think that maybe there'd be some retrospective thought going into how you move forward in the future. But now we found out that the IDA has put forward another idea, which the public hasn't been informed about. They're already having conversations, apparently, with General Electric to bring in a power plant that could go in at the site. These are concerns that you have an organization that's kind of acting rogue outside of, I think, the guidance that you all have put forward. So, you know, as a task force member, I am concerned about that. I think ultimately what we're going to have to do as a community is not only think about where we're getting our energy from, but also what kind of growth do we want. There was a great speaker who spoke last night about the need for knowledge-based development, not necessarily just heavy industrial type of activities, but knowledge-based projects, you know, things that might involve office, mixed use, things like that. Those are things that I think we can consider, and that would use probably far less energy than the old style of thinking about heavy industry. And frankly, I think that's something that's going to happen because your IDA hasn't performed very well for you. I think we're going to hear more about it in a second, but But ultimately, the IDA has not been successful in bringing jobs. I think it's brought in 20% of the jobs that are promised at a cost of about $40,000 a piece. Meanwhile, the other IDAs in the southern tier have produced 98% of jobs. Even Delaware County, which has performed not as good as the other ones, they even produce 5 times more jobs than the IDA has for Otsego County. So I think there does need to be a close look at what the IDA is up to make sure that they're successful and all of us are successful in terms of protecting the environment and having a healthy economy for our community. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Michael Stolzer. I'm actually here as a proxy to read a letter that was written by Rachel Soper and presented at Oneonta's public hearing last night. I'd like to just add a note to what previous speaker said. The person who spoke last night about knowledge-based businesses has a $1.7 million payroll and says they consume about as much energy as 2 homes. This is brief, so I'll just read the letter in its entirety. The draft GEIS repeatedly states that the rail yard redevelopment project would create new jobs and add to the local tax base. The section titled Economics and Employment states, a site-specific economic analysis on potential impacts to property tax revenue was not completed for the purpose of this DGEIS. However, a positive impact is expected, as a redeveloped commercial industrial property would generate more in taxes than the currently largely vacant status. How is it possible that the Otsego County IDA, the purpose of which is to, quote, advance job opportunities and economic welfare, has not conducted an economic analysis for a project of this scale? The entire stated goal of the project simmers down to economic growth, and yet this DGEIS rests on the assumption that after huge amounts of resources are spent for the expansion of utilities such as sewer, water, electric, and gas, road installation and maintenance, fire service, wetland and soil impacts, that the city of Oneonta is going to come out on top in a better fiscal position with many more jobs. This is a very risky assumption and one that should not be made. I've given you all, well, I'll give this to you as soon as I'm done, given you all a copy of the most recent New York State Comptroller's data for the 12 southern tier IDAs, which documents the number of projects, the costs, the tax exemptions and pilots, along with job creation. 3 of the IDAs, Hornell, Irwin, and Groton, didn't report any projects. I have excluded Tioga County's data from my calculations as they are off the charts, but I have left it in the packets for reference. That leaves 8 IDAs, including Otsego County, which I have placed on top for easy reference. The remaining 7 IDAs are in alphabetical order. I have also included a glossary of terms in the back that you can reference to understand how each category was calculated. If you look at the Otsego County's IDA's data, you'll see they have 11 projects worth roughly $85 million. The estimated jobs to be created were 162. The estimated net job change, which means the actual jobs created, was 29. So, 162 versus 29. That's less than 1/5 of the jobs Otsego County IDA said they would create. The net tax exemptions per job gained was $42,943. So roughly $43,000 in tax breaks for every job created. The expenses per job gained was $33,483. To put this into perspective, take a look at the other 7 Southern Tier IDAs. The estimated jobs totaled 11,474, and the jobs created were 11,238. So as a whole, they came very close to reaching 100% of the jobs promised. They produced 98 out of every 100 jobs promised, whereas Otsego County IDA produced 20 of every 100 jobs promised. Further, every county individually produced many more jobs compared to Otsego County. The lowest job producer was Delaware County. They created 154 jobs, more than they estimated, and yet they still produced more than 5 times the jobs compared to Otsego County at 29 jobs. But here's what's really incredible. The 7 county IDAs combined gave net tax exemptions per job gained of $14,512, whereas Otsego County IDA gave $43,000 alone. So 7 counties combined gave 1/3 of the tax breaks per job compared to Otsego County. The average tax exemption per job by the 7 counties was $2,073. The highest exemption was given by Broome County at $5,098, compared to Otsego County at $43,000 per job. Expenses per job gained was a similar story. The 7 county IDAs combined spent $13,628, whereas the Otsego County IDA spent $33,483 alone. 7 counties combined spent roughly 2.5 times less compared to Otsego County alone. Based on the Otsego County IDA's dismal track record, I am requesting that the City Council insist on a full economic analysis of the rail yard redevelopment project, which breaks down the costs, who will bear those costs, the basis for projected job creation and justification on how the site will actually be filled. We'll omit the rest. Thank you for your consideration. Rachel Soper, Oneonta. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Russell Aarons, County Road 26, 180. Mr. Johnson, good day. Thank you for being here. And thank you for the good job your men and your subcontractor, I believe Todd Cable, doing stringing the broadband, getting it out to the people. Very important, as we know, we've all talked about this. And talk is cheap, but they're doing something about it. And I have some service from you on a property, and your company installed a security light, very affordable and excellent work. They've always given me good service. I applaud REA for what they do. And I've seen comparable operations in Virginia, in Eastern Shore, Virginia. It's good to have people that really do the work, and I see these guys out working. Next thing I want to reflect on what you said, and one thing that nobody seems to talk about is water power here in Otsego County, even micro water power. It seems that what was done 100 and some odd years before has been totally forgotten. And with the technology and the new turbines, I think it's something that's feasible. I think it's something that we need to think about, look at. It's a shame that the Colliersville Dam is not locally owned and maintained better. I'm a little concerned about what looks like deterioration on the exterior of that dam. When we had our last meeting here, you had your last meeting, there was a resolution transferring property in Milford. I looked up the numbers, $500, the one right behind the little deli there. I looked up the property number, and lo and behold, it was the property number for 86 acres on Roses Hill Road. So evidently there was an error somewhere along the line, and you were selling for $500. I don't know if you passed the resolution. I understand it was amended, fixed, noted that it was wrong. Point of me saying this is Otsego County makes a lot of mistakes. We're hearing a lot of complaints. I personally support the IDA. I give them credit for what they do. I see the hard workers that are diligent and there, and they have the right intentions to do everything they can. It falls
No words changed, et cetera, et cetera. And it rang a bell. We had such a manifesto presented to us in Otsego, and we wisely turned it down. We felt that should there ever be gas, and we don't know if it'll ever come, should there ever be a gas in Otsego, a manifesto like this is a gumbo of lawsuits, and we didn't want any part of it. However, we do have a rule. It's JR's rule, J.R. Holbert. And I think it covers everything, and it just runs like this. If it works, if it's cost effective, if it improves the ecology, let's try it. And that's what we use in Otsego. And JR, I don't think would have any objection if you took a word out or added a word. The other thing that occurred to me was this seems like it's a wrap on the Energy Task Force. Be frank with you, I'm sort of suspicious of the Energy Task Force. I sort of looked at the composition. I haven't done a full vetting, but it leans anti, okay? However, I was really, and I put this in a newsletter I sent to our association. I was really given hope. I believe it was Michelle Farwell who said, we're going to look at all forms of energy. Well, this isn't all forms of energy. So please, in fact, if I were from industry and saw this as your adoption, I don't know if I'd want to spend a year and a half on a task force. It looks like it's a wrap. So please, consider this and act accordingly. Yeah, I have a few other things, but I'll hold them. I hope sometime to bring you an energy bill from Germany. And I have it here. Unfortunately, it's in German. So I'll bring the German with me the next time and I'll show it to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Jello. I'm an employee and resident of Otsego County. And allow me just 10 seconds, besides my 3 minutes, to thank Mr. Bliss. My colleagues and I on the third floor were exceptionally grateful that you closed the building regarding us as important people for safety reasons. We all got home. Unfortunately, we had work to do with the ice at home. We couldn't stay up at our desks, but we want to thank you. We appreciate your concern for our safety getting home. And I have before me Resolution 101. Authorizing redemption of parcels taken under in-rem foreclosure. Mr. Ruffles, you sought a way, you found a way. Thank you. Mr. Chrisman, thank you. Now, if I'm reading this correctly, these people that are in rem foreclosure will have until July 19th at 3 p.m. July 31st, 2019, plus the taxes that they owe, plus the 15% penalty, plus the other penalties, and they stay in their home. Everything is calm, wrapped up. They're not going to be evicted. and they get to stay through the kindness and generosity of this man, because he thought it up, I know, and the board who is proposing this resolution. My congratulations to the committee for putting it forward. Bob and I want to know why you didn't do this in 2014. Bob Force and I want to know why we had to lose our home because we were ready to pay way before the auction, weeks before the auction. We went to Mr. Kroll, he said it was against the law. He couldn't possibly do it, and that we would have to buy back our own home. Now, why would I want to buy back $150,000 property when I didn't even know owe $9,000? Why would I do that? It was sold to another employee. I was brutally evicted. No warning. I didn't even have the opportunity to prepare. I was in the middle of an appeal, waiting for it to be perfected. I come home. I have state police. People banging on my door. You have to let the bidder in. She wants to come and see the house. No, I don't. I didn't have to do any of that. Now, why wasn't I afforded the same opportunity? I was here. I begged the board. I begged the treasurer. My attorney went before the judge. We went before the judge. We had an appeal. I don't understand this. If it's good and legal and proper now, why wasn't it good and legal and proper then? Do you understand? You're doing it. You were doing it what we asked you to do. It's very difficult for me to imagine that after all these months, you have come through with something that is compassionate and worthy of this county. You are intelligent, educated legislators. You know right from wrong. And I congratulate you on this. Now I am ready and have been since 2014, July, a few days after that cutoff date, for rescission, to pay the taxes, all penalties, and to go home. You remember one thing, this is all temporal. This is all temporary. But what we do here is not insignificant because it'll affect every one of us. I thank you for this, and I ask you, once again, not only for myself, but for Bob Force, who we have been since 2014 asking to return home. I thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I submit this, the letter and the supporting data? Is it possible for you to say just one word on my own behalf? Very short.
Back to the podium.
Sure. Thanks.
We'll allow it, I guess.
Just very quickly, the reason I'm here is that my work, instead of Rachel, is that my work didn't interfere with my ability to be here. Holding public meetings during everyone's work hours is an obvious obstruction to transparency. Really something should be done so the hours that this board convenes is at a time that is convenient for the majority of your constituents. And, you know, I've been at meetings here over the past years on and off, and I have listened to the pleas of this poor woman. And I've got to say, there is a certain inhumanity built into the law. And I understand that it's law, but some laws are not right. That a debt of whatever the amount is, $9,000, requires a $150,000 loss to somebody to make good on it is criminal, whether it's the law or not. That's simply unacceptable. That's something that really should be addressed. I don't know what business or in what other area of life, other than banks, actually. You know, there's something there as well. But that somebody loses all of their equity for a relatively small debt is an unjust system. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else? So, we're moving to approval of the minutes for February. All in favor?
Aye.
Presentation of petitions, communications, and notices.
I have January reports of ATI services rendered by Catholic Charities for Delaware and Otsego County. I have a notice from DOT informing the county of the pedestrian safety improvement signs and pavement markings on State Route 80, South Street and East Street in the town of Evanston that will be occurring in the future. I have a notice from the city of Oneonta in regards to a CDBG project that they're doing concerning the Wilbur Lake Dam repairs and improvements. It's a notice and a public review of the proposed activity located in the 100-year floodplain. I have a notice of claim Laura Messer versus County of Otsego and Sheriff Devlin, Deputy Solovich and Deputy Kimler as employees. The nature of the claim is that the claimant was injured in connection with conduct of illegal eviction in violation of the Real Property Actions Proceedings Law. Damages of injuries include expenses in the amount of $5,000 plus emotional damages of the amount of $75,000. I have a summons and verified complaint, DeForest Hunt versus Otsego County and the Sheriff Department, injuries that were caused by the negligence of the defendant. They're claiming severe, painful, permanent body injury, severe, permanent emotional pain, medical care expenses, loss of enjoyment of life suffered by injuries. Damages sought are sum of money having present value which exceeds jurisdictional limits of all lower courts, which would otherwise have jurisdiction of this matter. And they're also asking for interest, costs, and disbursements for prosecuting this action in addition to such other and further relief as the court may deem just.
Okay, now we have a special presentation for Johnson from Otsego Electric, here to update us on his project.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm Tim Johnson, the CEO of Otsego Electric. I think most of you already know. We are making tremendous progress. We're at about over 400 miles now of fiber construction. We have fiber in parts of southern Herkimer County as well as eastern Madison County as well, as part of the bidding process. And some of Otsego Electric's territory is in those areas as well. But there is essentially fiber all the way from the southern edges of Unadilla almost into Delaware County to Ridgefield, Exeter, points on the lake in Middlefield and Springfield, it's just into Springfield. down into Westford, and of course the center of the county, almost every township in the county. So we are happy that we've been able to get through that far. Construction's gotten slow this winter. The weather obviously has a major impact on the speed of construction. Some of the completion of the fiber requires splicing, of course, and splicing when it's under 20 degrees is like working with twigs. The fiber snaps, and you can't essentially work with it unless you can heat it up somehow. In the nature of our construction, most of our taps are up on the top of poles, so it has slowed down our ability to deploy connections for people. We anticipate, we've passed over 1,200 homes and businesses so far. We anticipate by the end of the year getting to about 2,000 plus, and possibly more. Probably by then we'll have 800 miles of construction done. We have drop crews ready to start, but as I say, we need 20-degree weather plus. So within the next few weeks, we hope that we'll begin a broader deployment of connections. The testers that are out there have done well. We have verified service speeds at close to a gigabit per second, and even on a cell phone that maybe you're sitting in your driveway with on wireless. If you have a good cell phone, mine's 2-3 years old and not as good as my coworkers. He's at 500 megabits a second sitting in a vehicle on the driveway. So extremely successful in terms of speed checks, and we're proud of that. We have electronics in 6 fiber huts around the county, so you maybe have seen at our substations, they're tiny little buildings that house the electronic routers that will route traffic from houses to the internet world, so to speak. As I mentioned, we'll have close to 2,000 services available hopefully by the end of this year, if weather cooperates. If we have, there's a lot of ifs. I sound like a lawyer when I get into the ifs, right? But the ifs are the availability of, most of our fiber contractors and crews are independent contractors. They don't like cold weather, so we have to beg and plea to get them to stay and to work in these kinds of conditions. In terms of pricing and services, we're offering 100 megabits per second for $49.95 a month. A gigabit, up to a gigabit, you can get for $79.95 a month, which is not available from any of our competitors. So, and we're proud to say that the folks who are lucky enough to be on this system will have superior service to anybody in the county and many of the cities in New York State. We're talking about offering an intermediate level that will probably be in the 250 megabit range as well. We offer internet phone, which I think will be a relief to those of you in the Morris, Gilbertsville direction who are struggling with some service problems right now. The phone service is $29.95. We offer managed Wi-Fi, that is, we install a modem on the property and manage that for $2 a month. This is a state-of-the-art modem that you can't buy in retail on the shelves. So a tremendous technological offering. We have a Wi-Fi extender that we add on as well that will allow people with large properties or those who have a household modem to extend service out further beyond the walls of their household, maybe out to a barn or other buildings on their property. So that's it. That's in a nutshell where we are. We do about 5 to 10 miles a week, depending on the weather. And when deployment starts on a widespread basis, we'll probably install 3 to 5 homes a day. So 25 a week or so is the goal, but we'll see. We'd like to do more than that, and if we can convince drop crews to do that, we'll go as fast as we can. So that's it. Any questions? Anything else?
What's your overall goal for households in general? I mean, you said you passed about 1,200
Right.
houses and businesses.
So
and-
far, yep.
And you said you were looking at about 2,000.
Right,
But
right.
what, I mean, any projections you're willing to share?
Right, it could be as many as 5,000 by the end of the year. That's the top end. We're required by the New York State Broadband Grant to get to at least 2,100, and that's easily going to be achieved. But we hope that it'll be closer to 5,000. So, yeah, it'll be, we've bid so that we're building entirely within the Otsego Electric footprint, which is 760 miles. And then we took on about roughly another 100 miles of NICEAG territory. And going through that process, getting permission to attach to their poles is ongoing and expensive. And hopefully by the end of it, we'll be well over 5.
You're talking about expanding into the NICEAG areas. Do you have hopes to be able to fully expand maybe throughout their territory so that everyone that's not on, lucky enough now to be in the REA to...
Right, yeah.
Is there something that we can do as a board to help in that difficulty you're having dealing with NICEAG?
Yeah, in the low-density areas, and these are the people who don't have service already, the financial feasibility of building to everyone is limited. I think that Otsego Electric's Board of Directors is committed to providing service to all of our members. It goes beyond our mission to provide outside of our footprint, so strategically we'll have to make some decisions at that point. But we're committed to supporting the community. So to the extent that we can do it legally, et cetera, I think that we'll continue to try to do it and reinvest in the network. We're very interested in seeing more money from the governor and or the federal government, perhaps, to support that kind of development. So to that extent, maybe we'll ask for a letter of support. If it comes along that another grant is being made available, we would really appreciate that. And we're looking for those opportunities because it really, even though we'll have 860 miles, there are obviously pockets where we are not getting to the communities of Maryland for some reason. The way the broadband maps were drawn up, Maryland was essentially left out, which makes very little sense.
Like completely left out?
There was almost no money available in some of these communities, but just because of the vagaries of the census block maps.
Guess where I live.
Right. But we know that there's demand for it, so we have that in mind. And people are welcome to call us and express interest in us building to them. We have a list that's I shouldn't call it a wish list, but a list beyond what we're initially trying to do. And the more density and the more interest that we get there, the more we can maybe justify investing in that direction. So, yeah.
So would it be fair to say that depending on the outcome of the 2020 census with respect to the accuracy of the counts, those broadband maps could change?
The federal government's working on upgrading the broadband data now. Unfortunately, we've already committed resources and started construction. If the new maps come back and the new data comes back, I don't know whether the 2020 census will be that much useful unless they target it through the FCC. And the FCC reporting's been based on actually, the census maps that we use for bidding were based on data that was 2-3 years old. So some of the people that we were given money to build to already had spectrum availability, and or Frontier or other service providers. Right. Well, yeah, I can't comment on that, but yeah.
I got to tell you, when you were here last time and spoke, I live in Burlington. I was figuring, all right, I'll see this in a year and a half, 2 years, maybe. Well, I was pleasantly surprised last summer in the July area, I think, your crews were stringing cable, and I thought, all right, they'll do the roads and the primary roads. Next thing I know, they're 1,000 feet up my driveway, right in the pole of my house. So I've been pretty impressed with your progress.
Thank you, appreciate it. We're trying.
I would just like to thank you also. I mean, there's a lot of optimism in my area for what this is gonna be able to do and bring in terms of economic development. So thank you very much for taking on this whole project. And it was maybe a bit of a leap to go from supplying electricity to also supplying broadband. And I'm glad that you took it on. And I hesitate to ask for more, but
You were just in
but I'm
Albany
going
yesterday.
to anyway. So I know you had said, could you speak a little bit more about any potential for using your sites or equipment for cell service?
Right, yeah, and we've talked to the county actually about that as well, perhaps bringing fiber into some of the towers. We've made inquiries with cell phone providers, cell tower providers, construction companies, et cetera. That hasn't been our push yet because we're not done with most of the construction, but those conversations will hopefully lead to some deployment of cell for sure. And I know the governor is talking about that as well, that he's interested in expanding cellular coverage in upstate New York. I don't know if that's going to lead to money availability, but if it does, we'll be looking at an opportunity or two to, especially down in your part of the county. I know that's one of the blacker holes, so to speak, for cell coverage. I remember being in Morris, right in downtown Morris, and if you stood next to the pizzeria like this, you could get a service product. That was it for the whole town. So yeah, that's it. They say that cellular follows fiber, so we think that once the infrastructure is there, it should happen. We've built in capacity to take care of it.
I'd also like to thank you and your company for taking on the state initiative and following through in such a effective manner. I look forward to Burlington becoming the economic driver of the eastern side.
We think right.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe there'll be a Bitcoin up there.
Dan's building
And
the
you made
farm
it
already.
possible.
Yeah, right. I don't know if we want them, actually, they use a lot of power, so.
But you're never going to get to my house. I live in Center City, Oneonta, and and without offering any opinions about Spectrum, I wonder if you could remind us about where Spectrum sits now in terms of their responsibility for providing this kind of service to the rest of the county, because they started out, that's what they had, that responsibility.
Right.
Where are we now?
I don't know officially from the PSC communications what's happening there, but we know that within our system we had a pile of applications for them to develop within our system, and those haven't moved anywhere.
Yeah.
And partly that's because, and I'll confess, we resisted it, saying that we really don't want Spectrum crews going up and down the same roads we're going up and down, because our homeowners have a tolerance level for disruption, as you can imagine. And
Disrupt all you want.
yeah, some are like that, but you can imagine the 10% maybe that don't, they don't like ruts. They don't want to come over a knoll and see a truck in the road, which that's even with signage, that's a problem for everybody. So yeah, I understand for sure. I don't know. My best answer is I don't know. And I hesitate to say, because who knows what's going on behind closed doors there. We talk to the PSC every week. And it's kind of funny when you get into a state grant. Probably a lot of you have done this. We have mandatory phone calls with 7 different offices right now. They're not all state offices. The broadband office is in on all these other calls. And the PSC joins one of those calls once a week, and they're pretty mum. We don't hear anything. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And
Okay.
again, if there's anything we can do to help you, please let us know.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Quick statement. I think that from the energy planning perspective, it is crucial that we maintain a good faith working relationship with our economic development community. And that means being conscientious of their feelings and making sure that they remain at the table throughout the preparation of the plan. And that said, because without their involvement, the plan, is, meaningless. And so, I think that it's critical, and there's fraught contentious issues going on, but the critical thing is that we bring everyone together to carry out this critical process and govern by consensus, and that means listening to opinions that you do not agree with and doing your best to find common ground. So I commend you and Michelle for working so hard to get everyone to the table. Thank you.
I just, going back to the Energy Committee, the one thing I think is worth pointing out is that through the, I don't know, the Empire State Development Funds, I'm not sure which pot of money it came from, but our board did allocate $50,000 to support the Energy Committee and be able to hire whatever RFP process that committee decides to carry out. But that's pretty significant, I think.
And we are working together to put together the RFP and hopefully have it put out to, that will help.
The other thing I just had sent out this morning, and I mentioned it to Meg briefly, the IGA committee strategic work plan, which I guess is kind of jumping ahead to strategic planning, but we do have a draft of that finally. I know I've been continuing to talk about it. It's 40 pages long, but there's obviously a lot that plugs into IGA, and it's actually pretty great to kind of see the destination marketing is outlined in here, the IDA is outlined in here, so we do really have a lot of those components, and they are, in my opinion, they're, once you all take a look at it, and obviously we need to kind of get it out to the people that we collected this information from, and then we're reviewing it at IGA, but I think this is a really good first draft summary of all the different moving parts that plug into IGA, and I think it really encapsulates a lot of the priorities that we're all talking about and really focusing on. So I'm looking forward to our strategic planning committee kind of moving forward with getting this one finalized. We're getting close. So
Look forward to reading it.
yeah. And I don't know, Dave, if it's at some point on the IDA side of it. I mean, I don't know if it's worth saying anything at this point, or if you want me to just wait. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say very quickly, again, the IGA committee work plan, I think, for those of you who were on strategic plan, when we met with Jody, and the IDA does have a strategic plan, and that is plugged into this, and I mean, I think the elements in there are building right off the Otsego County strategic prioritization plan, and there's nothing in there that's going to be controversial or shocking to anybody, other than continuing to look at energy and those kinds of issues that we're already confronting. I think it's just worth saying, and Meg and Liz have already reinforced this. Jody is meeting with our representatives, especially put through IGA, on a monthly basis. I think the amount of information we're receiving is significant compared to our first 2 years on the board, when with different leadership, in place at the IDA. But I think again, I would just say, if anyone has concerns about some of the things that are being raised, Jody would absolutely come here in a heartbeat and answer questions, as we all know, and clear up any misunderstandings. I think from my perspective, the IDA, when it comes to rail yards, it is a priority project for Otsego now. There is no power plant that's gonna be built there. There is no decompression station that's gonna be built there. There is no bridge that's gonna be built there. And Jody can clearly come and provide that information. I think many of you already know some of these things. The bridge was dead a long time ago. It was a $40 million project that never even got off the ground. It was just an assessment of it. And some of these other components are just due diligence, like General Electric. The idea is looking at energy storage options, not building a power plant. So I think this is about getting all of the information and making sure that we on the county board obviously have access to that and understand what's going on. And I think Jody has been very good about providing that to the IGA committee. And I also, on the IDA board, am forwarding the minutes and everything on a regular basis. So I think we are coordinating with the IDA, and I think this is, the rail yards project is, a project that could bring some positive aspects to the county. What would be down there, that is kind of the question mark and maybe the potential issue, because we really don't know what would be developed. So that, I think, that ambiguous nature of it is somewhat problematic for many people. But I think one way or another, if people have questions or issues, I think we should ask Jody to come to the April meeting to try to clear up any of that for all of us.
With respect to the rail yard project, I mean, it's germane that I comment on this as it is in my district. I'm fully supportive of, the efforts of the IDA to create, hundreds of jobs within wards 5 and 6. That is an area in desperate need of growth. That said, there was a report done by the city or commissioned by the city in 2016 that identified the lack of coordination between the city, the county, and the IDA as a #1 impediment to economic development in Otsego County, because developers don't know who to go to. So there's a real need down there to plan effectively and to bring people together and facilitate meaningful dialogue. It's not just kind of having people come to a meeting and update you on what you're doing. It's the consultation before you make the decision as to what you're doing that is important. And also important to note is it's important to utilize the public input and engage them in a meaningful, participatory way and give them a modicum of control over how that site's developed. So I think the county is a good facilitator of that. It's just getting people to the table, much like the Energy Task Force, that we'll have to really figure out how to do without ruffling feathers.
Can I just say one quick clarification? The IDA is not positioned at this point as the economic development agency for Otsego County. They have a specific purpose and mission, and so there's an ongoing discussion that Otsego now should be broadened more into being a full service economic development organization. But as all of you know, there's only 2 staff that work for that organization, so there's a lot of limited kind of limitations to what they do. But I think moving forward, that coordination piece, as Otsego now, and again, how long has Jody been there? A year at the most. So I think it's a work in progress. But I think as the IDA better develops and kind of takes on more of that role, that coordination piece should absolutely be addressed, and hopefully we are, working better together.
I think Jody has done a good job of trying to bring other organizations into Otsego now into their offices so that they're there for people and has a much better working relationship. I think the report that Rachel was referring to is a 2016 comptroller's report.
Yeah, probably, yes.
And, so the previous director had a history of when he was in Greene County, he got like $28.7 million worth of tax exemptions, a quarter of their total tax load. That's not Jody's MO.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
not
that's
what he's
right.
about,
We have to
and he's looking to create jobs that are gonna stay here and actually have something to show for it, and he's done a good job coming to the committee more often, and not starting something.
Oh, it's been a complete turnaround as far as
Yeah, I think the city has a ways to go on being open and communicative, but I'm not sure that it's Jody's issue. And also the IDA meetings are open to the public, so people that are interested, you can attend their meetings.
I do agree that communications improved a lot over the past couple of years. I do just want to encourage Jody and the rest of the IDA to communicate with the town of Oneonta government. I know there were concerns around the decompressor proposal specifically. So just moving forward on that. And I think there's still questions, so that they didn't get that grant.
Right.
Is that proposal still there in the background, or is that dead? I don't know if you know the answer to that or not, but.
The IDA has no money to build any significant project of that nature. So I mean, from a financial standpoint, it's absolutely dead unless somebody is coming in with significant dollars.
And I would just say that maybe the data that was presented to us today is older than we would like it to be, but it was very concerning to me. And I think that that's the kind of way we as a county should be analyzing our, the Otsego now. And I'd encourage all of us to try to get the most current data, because what that showed was in 2016, people of Otsego County weren't getting a lot of bang for their buck, and I'd hate for that to keep continuing.
One thing that I would mention to add on is, to Andrew's point, is that a lot of the issue around the decompressor was self-manufactured, kind of a self-created controversy. And the way you get around that is by working with your respective local governments, your elected officials and citizens, and properly planned projects. So I think that we're moving along the right track now, and I look forward to kind of maintaining that course.
Okay.
If I could be so brash, I believe that some of that debt is exactly why there's a new director at the IDA.
I just want to say, during the past few years, we have not been, as a county, contributing monetarily to the IDA, and that's a misconception, I think, is sitting in this room today. We just approved, but we're talking about what happened in the meeting, and we should have had this, because we were given money. We were not, since the inception. We at one point offered a couple of tens of thousands of dollars and were rejected because we wanted to target what it was for.
And so just to finish my IDA report, we did approve $75,000 in the budget for 2019 as funding for general operations, and we do expect to hear a final report by September 15th, 2019, which will include an annual report and an audited financial statement. So that is part of our agreement with Otsego Now that was signed. And then I do just want to point out a spelling error on Resolution 97, which is appointing members to the Southern Tier 8. Jody's last name is not spelled correctly. I'm not going to say I know how to spell it off the top of my head, but I do recognize it as a misspelling. So that is my report.
Okay. We're coming up on a hard break for an executive session to interview highway candidates. So I would entertain the resolution to recess, first to consult with our attorney, and then second to enter executive session to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a person.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I don't think Liz was first and second.
So then
People they represent, they should be doing that. Plans and drawings from a training center being developed. They are supposed to be here by now, so. County Attorney Penny Gentile shared their insights on our pre-employment psychological testing for the correction officers. They feel that we have better options than the psychological resource company that is currently preferred by the sheriff. This will be discussed further at the next PSO meeting. We are setting up interviews for our public defender position. Denise Oliver, we approved some training for her. She stated that April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And she talked to us about a ribbon cutting ceremony at the CAC for the new exam room that we put in. I couldn't find where I wrote that date down, or if even was determined yet, but when I do, she's gonna send that, I'll have her send that out to everyone on the board, because she wanted all reps to be invited. The fire advisory board is March 21st at 7 o'clock in the Meadows, and our next meeting, PSLA, is March 15th at noon.
Any questions? Health and Ed, Representative Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman Bliss. I'll be very brief today. The county received a $40,000 grant for startup costs for a certified peer recovery advocate. That'll be contracted through Friends of Recovery. The mission of that position will be to provide support to the jail and treatment court population, and that's in addition to, separate from the $60,000 grant that was already awarded for addiction services in the jail. The criminal actions line has popped up again this year. That's one of those things that's hard to predict what we're going to have to spend on that. We are responsible for a bill that's come up recently, and we'll keep an eye on that. Hopefully there won't be additional costs building up on that. We approved a $60,000 purchase order for medications through Cardinal Health, 100% reimbursable. A significant portion of the meeting was hearing from a guest speaker, an occupational therapist from Otsego, who discussed a new initiative in the county called Otsego Includes. Its goal is to work with people with disabilities across Otsego County to make us a more accessible and supportive county. Heard a lot of statistics about the population to serve on this initiative, so if you're interested, reach out to the committee and we can connect you. We've got a big event coming up, the 2019 Living Healthier Expo. You should all have some promotional materials on your desk, and that'll be April 5th and 6th from 10 to 3 p.m. Extremely successful last year. They're looking to build on the success of last year, and just looking forward to another great event. So get the word out to all your towns and districts, and hopefully there'll be another great turnout. Our next meeting is March 11th at 9 a.m.
Thank you. Any questions?
You say March 15 and 9?
11.
11.
Be there.
This Monday. I might be late.
All right, thank you. We'll be there.
Solid Waste and Environmental Concerns, Representative Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple things we've already discussed. There's Resolution 94 to let 3 pieces of property into the A district enrollment request. Also, we discussed the Climate Smart Pledge resolution that was tabled in the January board meeting and proposed additions and deletions. Anyway, that's Resolution 105. Karen Sullivan gave an update of the farm preservation grant, noting that there were 4 candidates that one scored the highest was Bob Tracy, Briar Hill Farm in the town of Springfield. She requests approval to transfer $450 from heat lights to replace a couple telephones. Request approval for the following budget modifications: hazardous mitigation grant for $28,185. To increase the hazardous limit grant to $11,000 for another grant received. We also approved the modification of the regards to DEC septic grant in the amount of $59,700. The committee discussed the DEC septic grant, including but not limited to the Goodyear Lake residential and rentals. For only right now, that grant is a half match up to $10,000. Dan Sullivan was in, and Delaware Engineering is doing a feasible study in the Ridgefield for water and sewer district. Karen requested approval for a few more budget modifications. One of them is a snowmobile grant in the amount of $40,302.50. Jordan Clements wasn't able to make it, so Karen gave a report. All those are listed in your minutes. As you know, we went over the solid waste and recyclables, which recyclables was, I think, ended up at $124 a ton in January. We got a little good news couple weeks ago. I saw Karen at a meeting, and somebody that took our recyclables wanted, before that was charging us $70 or didn't take them, wanted to know if they could have a load of recyclables, and we delivered them, and they called back and they wanted, I think, 2 or 3 more loads because they were so clean, and it lowered the price down to get rid of them to $40 a ton. So hopefully that keeps going forward. Karen gave an update of the status of the recycling densifier grant. When this is purchased, we think it's going to be housed down to the reuse center in Oneonta. And we already mentioned the DOT work over in Edmiston, so we know about that. The reuse center store report, we went over that. Today, as of meeting time, they have taken out 224,000 pounds of material out of the waste stream. So that saves us all money and saves landfills. And I went down there for the first time a week or so ago, and it's kind of neat. I bought some stuff there. It's amazing what they have in there. And we meet again on March 15th at 9 a.m. at the Meadows.
Any questions? Hearing none. Admin, Representative Kennedy.
Okay. So we met on the 22nd of March, 9 o'clock. The first thing that we discussed was the recording policy for this boardroom, and it was resolved, amended, reviewed, and we are now living with the outcome of that meeting, which I felt was a very positive step forward. Many of the other issues that we discussed have already been discussed today and presented by other committee reports. One thing that is mentioned in the minutes, we did discuss the replacement of outdated equipment with building services and the train issue of potentially doing an energy performance contract to replace this really big thing that sits on the roof. I'm not really sure what it is, but my notes did not reflect that. It costs a lot of money too. But we did agree to proceed with the investment grade energy audit, which Chairman Bliss had actually already mentioned today. So I do want to pull resolution number 101, which is an admin resolution. With regards to real property and in-rem procedure, we have to add 2016 to the resolution. Then we transferred funds. We did do a lot of discussion that day, which you can read in your minutes, and if anyone has any questions, I'll make them now.
Questions? Okay, special committee negotiations, Treasurer. Performance review and goal setting.
Thank you, Chair. February 19th we met. Contrary to what I think I told last month, we did not start our department head evaluations. That will be coming this month. We agreed upon the policy for the evaluation of all non-elected employees of Otsego County. We got it all into one policy. It was only a half page. And we counted that as a win, and that, we brought that to admin, and it was approved there. And so that's a lot of good work, and I especially want to thank Liz and Penny for a lot of good work on that. We finalized the evaluation forms, which you have been sent. Penny sent them to you, along with the procedure for evaluating department heads. And I'm going to send out something as well. The first series of evaluations will be in March, in this month, and Representative Stammel has agreed to organize the 3 department heads at the Health and Ed Committee and to do their committee evaluations at the committee meeting on the 11th, and then we will meet on the 26th and facilitate the formal evaluation then. And then by then Penny will have a schedule out for the rest of the year, so committee chairs can plan. There are 3 things. I left my notes at home, so I only can only remember 2. There's 3 things I'm going to ask you. It's been a long meeting. I didn't get any sleep last night. So the things that we're going to ask committees and committee chairs to go over with their department heads, and what we will be looking at and asking about in the evaluation meetings are whether the department and the department chair have set goals for the next year or 2, and if so, how those goals are going. That'll be part of the way things that they'll be assessed for in the form. Secondly, do they have a succession plan? And if not, how is that coming? How is that, at different departments it's going to look differently. So for individuals, so I can't remember the 3rd one. But I'll have that.
Do they evaluate their employees?
Do they? Oh, very important, yes. Do they evaluate their employees? And now that they have a coordinated, consistent policy that applies to everybody, we will be hopefully expecting department heads and their delegates further down in the leadership hierarchy to be evaluating every employee employed by Otsego County at least every 2 years. So yes, thank you. So those are the 3 things that we will be making sure. And of course, there are other pieces of it, but these are what we're interested in now. Next meeting, as I told you, will be on the 26th at 1 p.m. here in the county office building. And of course, we'll go right into executive session and start the evaluation.
Any questions? Technology and strategic planning, Representative Mariano.
Well, as I already mentioned, we have the draft IGA committee work plan that will kind of move through the IGA committee, and on the other side of it, we're starting Health and Education Committee, and strategic planning met with Sumat, and we need to, actually we haven't scheduled our next committee meeting, but we need to meet with Heidi Bond and the other folks that plug into health and education. So, but that one should move pretty quickly.
Questions?
Oh, I forgot to mention, at the next committee meeting, we have to finalize the charge for our committee. So we didn't actually have minutes this time, which we're not, as everybody knows, we're not an official committee. We have a goal to become an official committee, which is
like we're going nowhere, doesn't it?
which is dependent on an official. We just need our official name and committee kind of charge that Ellen would bring in front of the board in April for approval, and then we would be official.
Are you considering a name change?
No, I don't think we're considering a name change, but we just unless.
We need a little blurb about.
Yeah, blurb about the
chair's
committee.
telling you, or what the board is charging or what.
Yes, that was the main thing I talked to Ellen about, and that we just need to finalize that at our yet-to-be scheduled committee in March.
Any other special assignments you would like to report on? Anything?
Well, I did want to say that the next administration committee meeting is March 25th at 9 a.m. I'm suffering from heat. Anyway, but I did, I was in Albany yesterday with Michelle and Jordan and Ashley from the Soil and Water Committee, and we were lobbying for soil and water issues, but it was a very interesting day. But tangentially, I got a text from Tolga from the land bank who asked if I could possibly have been in Albany because he thought he saw me. But then he added to say that the land bank had been awarded, they had pretty much been assured of $20 million award for land banks. So speaking as a land bank report with added information, the land bank should be doing well in the next funding round too. So. And they do have a meeting tomorrow, which I will be attending. And we have had land bank activity down in the town of Oneonta. The outreach coordinator, Bob Albrecht, came down and met with the town. And then, so that was a big step forward too. Hopefully more. Cherry Valley has been involved, Ridgefield Springs.
And I'll just add a little bit on to our trip yesterday. We met with 13 different legislators, all the assemblymen in our district that are in the Otsego County, and Senator Seward and then others. And our basic message was to thank the assemblymen for including a generous increase in the EPF funding in this year's budget and from last year. And then also just to advocate for rural counties and rural soil and water districts who have a harder time with the municipalities applying for certain grants. And there was a specific bill that will allow soil and water districts to apply for a specific grant on behalf of towns that will help rural counties. So, let you know.
Okay, we did consolidated countywide shared services initiative. We met about that, the panel, county people, briefly, and with the Department of State. So we're progressing on that. We're scheduling a meeting shortly for all the participants to work on getting this year's plan implemented and also beginning stages of developing next year's plan simultaneously. So you don't have to rush it again. Most of the people will be the same. So if you have any ideas for a new project or including your towns that this year's plan we can expand, things like email, towns that aren't involved this year can join into that next year and get credit for that. So if you have a town in your district that isn't involved and wants to be, please send them in. Anything else? So, moving on to any special reports. We have none that we have already done. We have a motion to dispense with the reading of all resolutions.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Is there any representative wishing to remove the resolution from the consent agenda? We have 101 already. Right, actually, I'm going to remove 100. 105, 805. Any others? Okay. Call for action on the consent agenda. So moved. Second. Roll call vote.
Frazier. Harlow.
Aye.
Clark. Aye. Stammel.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Overactor.
Aye.
Bliss.
Aye.
Marietta.
Yes.
McCarty.
Aye.
Wilbur.
Aye.
Sotnick.
Aye.
Martini.
Aye.
Lappin.
Aye.
Shannon.
6,228 ayes, 0 noes. Consent agenda is passed.
Resolution 100, opposing the proposed and amended 2020 executive state budget impacting aid and incentives to municipalities and state cost shifts to counties.
I just pulled this very briefly because I think it's important that we get this notice, maybe get a little more attention in the media, that this is something that could cost the counties a considerable amount of money, and also impacts all towns, cities, and villages. I think you're all aware, the governor, in the attempt to close the governor's budget, the state budget gap, we first talked about eliminating aid to local municipalities, what used to be called revenue sharing aid funding, to all municipalities with under a certain population, which essentially was all of upstate New York. And then he met resistance and then decided to reinstate that funding, not from the state, but have the counties pay for it out of their sales tax, make up the state funding. That the counties make up for what he was reducing out of his budget, and the counties reimburse the towns and villages and cities. So the New York Association of Counties has obviously very much against that. They sent us a draft resolution which we fully endorsed at the committee level, and I think it's important enough that we need to vote on it separately, so we can emphasize it, that we think that's a bad idea.
Do we have a dollar total on what it costs the county?
The county, I do not, but my rough guess is we have 26 municipalities affected, and I know in Middlefield it was around 15,000, so it would be somewhere.
And it's gotta be something to put
Yeah.
into the resolution to say that this will, cost the county and.
It would be, but it'd be
Percentage
somewhere
of
in the
budget.
neighborhood of $250,000. Yeah, well, I'm just guessing.
And do we have any legal remedies for this? I mean,
It's an unfunded mandate.
another one, and so if we were to hold back some monies that we were supposed to give them.
They would just hold back other money.
Obviously, our budgets are already set. I mean, our budgets included that money.
But we've been thinking of taking it from the internet sales tax.
Right. Which we budgeted a small amount for, and that's a complete unknown. We have no idea
Exactly.
how much that's
And
actually.
we're gonna have to
be.
pay this money out and be sure at the end.
Right.
But to me, it seems like a counterproductive, approach by the governor's office to ask the county and its municipalities to comply with an ever-increasing amount of state programs and projects, and then resolve to cut funding to implement the same programs and projects. So I'm very much in favor of supporting this resolution.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I did speak with Senator Seward and some of the Charles, and told them, that this is unacceptable. Both of them were on the page, so I mean, that's what they have to get voted in.
Right, right.
But I told them that we were gonna be having, a resolution to, resist it. But, they're not planning on supporting it. So.
Yes. Thanks. All right, did we get a second?
No.
We did.
Second.
Okay, this can be a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution 100 passes. 101.
So I pulled that because we need to add the year 2016 into the language of the resolution.
The second paragraph?
Yes.
Motion to amend? Second?
Second.
Okay, motion to amend resolution 101. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Approved?
We need to, should I even So if you
motion.
could just give a second.
I seconded.
Adrian second.
I did.
Yeah.
Oh, she did.
Yep,
And
that's
before that,
okay.
I-
So did Dan.
Yeah.
We can recover it.
We're getting tired out here.
I spaced out.
Who seconded?
We're talking about
But I heard a
the
second,
amendment.
and I was like, I'm not.
Yeah, we needed a second on the actual resolution before we even discussed that.
Okay. I think we're good.
No, we
Now we have to- now you
Now we gotta do the-
Are we doing a roll call?
I think it can be voice vote as well. That's gonna be
I'll also make that motion.
And I will second it.
Okay.
You didn't even have that.
No.
So no discussion? Roll call vote?
Oh.
Voice
Voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Resolution 101 passes. Sorry. And we have 105.
Resolution 105, adopting the Climate Smart Communities Pledge for Otsego County, McCurdy, Kennedy, Cookman, Black, and Farwell.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
I'm the one that pulled this. We had one person speak against us this morning, and he took some of my thunder, but the 10 elements that they call, I just believe that it's too vague. I'm not sure of what we're attempting to accomplish with this. Decrease energy use, that should be everybody's goal. Shift to clean renewable energy, I think that. Some of this enhanced community resilience for climate change, inform and inspire the public. I mean, I don't get this. Build a climate smart community. This seems like it's an attempt to stifle any type of development, not to increase. I just don't believe that we should be tying the hands of anybody, private money at all, that wants to come in and do any type of building or any type of improvement or move to our county and tie their hands. I can't support any energy-related resolution or legislation that hinders or restricts expansion or growth of a currently existing business, startup, or an entity that may be looking to move to or expand in Otsego County. I really think that residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural users, if they so choose to take their money and invest in any type of energy, that we should not be tying their hands. So, I won't be voting to support this today.
Can I respond? So to the first point, New York is a home rule state, and the impetus is on the communities to direct development to how they best see fit. Climate change poses an existential, financial, and health-related risk to the health, well-being, and general safety of our citizens. This pledge is designed to take broad actions in a way that best encourages development, that does not inappropriately hinder individual users seeking to grow their business, but rather help them plan for and protect against a threat that could affect their livelihood. So, for example, one can only need to look at the Catskill Mountains right to our east. Decreasing snowpack greatly threatens the viability of their communities, to the point where you can even measure the direct financial loss to the amount of days they're making snow over time. The increased spread of invasive species due to changing temperatures can affect the ecological health of our lake, our major tourist draw up in the village, among the Hall of Fame. These broad steps are designed to kind of chart a path, and it contains no legal teeth with which development of any kind, gas, otherwise, could be stifled, but rather puts the impetus on us to figure out how to best protect the health, safety, and general welfare of our citizens, to help plan properly for growth and encourage it in every way that we can. And in fact, by recognizing threats to growth, we would actually be protecting it and encouraging it. And I would like to remind, you all that failure to act on climate change, the more we fall behind, the harder it will be to get back up. And, even the benefits as far as specific actions go, the main thing that, we can look at with respect to health, safety, and general welfare is update of our all hazards mitigation plan. This is the first of such plans that contains a large climate change component. And so through the preparation of that plan, we are already taking action on this. This gives us more ability to bring in dollars to help our communities plan for their development better. And given, the home rule protections in New York State and the, in an event of large scale interstate commerce applications for a pipeline, what have you, there are federal regulations that often will supersede what we adopt here. And I think that's why I feel comfortable supporting this resolution, is because it allows us to benefit our communities. It contains no legal provisions that would hinder it, and I'd be very concerned if it did that.
Thank you, Jerry.
Couple things, enhancing community resilience to climate change. Jordan is doing that over at Stillwell Water now, and has been doing that for a couple of years. Climate change is going to affect the Northeast. All the models say it. It's been happening by making it wetter and cooler. That's just how it goes. Different regions have different effects. And so the effect that we are going to see, and we have seen, is increased flooding. There are already climate resiliency grants for working on stream stream enhancements, so that has less of a negative impact on our county. It's happening already. It's going to continue to happen. I agree with Danny that this is not.
Karen Sullivan at the planning department looked into some things for me that I would just like to share. Many of the recommendations, encourages the key word, and it allows for the county to work on energy efficient upgrades and energy efficient equipment. So I could see potentially if something costs more to the county later, at some future day, we could say, well, we're spending a bit more to get more efficiency, just, as a possibility. Just again, the word encourage is the key word. And many of the communities that have used this money have used it to do studies on recycling food scraps, relocating a municipal building out of a floodplain, and then just to say my town, Hartwick, is a climate smart community, and as far as development goes, just last night they approved going forward with the seeker negative declaration on Hampton Inn in Hyde Park, so development was not turned away from Hartwick, even as a climate smart community. As going through the seeker process, the questions about energy, there are questions about energy use, and so I feel that they were addressed in the seeker, and the climate smart piece of it didn't inhibit the development, whatever. I'm losing it. I'm here.
Anyone else? Kathy?
The gentleman that spoke today was from one of the towns I represent, Otsego, and in the town of Otsego, they chose not to take the pledge. The one thing, as Ed said, these are smart things to do, the county can do them without the pledge. It bothers me when the state once again comes down and tells us, you must take these verbatim, 10 things. You can't change them or modify them for how they might be for you, but it screams to me there might be an ulterior use down the line they'll hold you to because you took this pledge. But I will be voting no on the pledge, although I applaud the efforts that we've done so far, and I hope we will continue to do more for energy efficiency and those types of things, but I will not be signing up for the pledge.
I thought these were altered.
The
Not the 10 tenants, the 10 tenants are not allowed to be altered.
Right, but the stuff leading up to them.
Whereas, the 10 components that are listed at the end.
So, just to be clear, there's nothing in this resolution that is binding us.
Nope.
We can still continue doing what we're doing.
Yep.
Really quick, of just one, kind of one thing that, you look at like, supporting, enhancing community resilience to climate change. It would be like actually mapping out how many miles of paved road, unpaved road, and figuring out the response time for EMS to get out there. That's like one major thing in the event of a big flood or in the event that communication networks are down due to snow and ice. The other thing would be is like if the rail yard, on a rail yard were to be redeveloped in a denser way, even if it did use gas as some component, but if it was instead of a humongous parking lot, the parking lots were slightly smaller, the buildings were denser, that's considered climate smart land use because you're avoiding massive sprawling development and focusing on more dense kind of, so it depends on how you can do it. And, as far as the grants go, without adopting the pledge, and you kind of still do these projects, it's like deciding that you're gonna climb up a hill with a 10-pound backpack versus a 200-pound backpack. It just makes everything harder, to do. So, it's, to me, we can pick and choose what best benefits our constituents, but we, should try to leave ourselves open to, getting as much state aid to our county as possible.
I just want to call the question.
Yeah, thank you.
You may not need to go that far yet. Are there any other comments before?
He called it.
Got a second,
Does he need a second?
No, I don't think it takes.
Yeah, I don't think he needs a second.
Yeah, we did.
Did we?
It needed to be a simple majority.
We just rewrote that one.
2/3.
So do we want to vote on calling the question?
Well, I can't remember.
Or-
Basically, there's, I'll second it just in case, if it's unnecessary.
I think we're ready to vote regardless.
When a motion is made to call a question, all discussions shall stop, and a vote shall be taken on whether or not to vote on the passage of the resolution or other matter under consideration. You need 2/3, so there's no second, so that's on the floor.
So now you need a 2/3 vote?
Correct.
Call
Say
the
they
question.
vote on
You would
it.
need that anyway.
To call the question.
Let's just vote.
No, it's pulled, as long as it's not late,
Okay.
if it's pulled, then it still needs a,
And we're voting on calling the question, not on the resolution.
Right.
I was about to say.
Right now, we're voting on whether or not we should just skip to the vote. Which is, it all right.
You consider it, John.
I will withdraw my question if we can vote.
You already got it second.
that
easier.
Okay,
So what's the plan?
the plan is, he withdrew his motion to call the question.
Okay,
Is there any other comments?
now,
Okay, so this can do a voice vote on resolution 105. You want to do
I would,
roll call better? Okay, roll call vote.
Frazier,
No.
Farwell,
Aye.
Clark. No. Stammel,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Yes.
O'Bracker,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Aye.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Kootnick,
Aye.
Martini,
aye.
Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
5,235 ayes, 993 noes, 0 abstentions, resolution 105 is passed.
Still have a late resolution.
Yep.
Can't go yet.
Okay, if there are no objections, late resolution A will be acted upon as presented. Motion, second?
Second.
Okay.
Oh,
Discussion?
sorry. I'll second it.
Second.
Resolution 107, amending resolution number 218 of 2018-0801, authorizing the release of program funds, Kennedy, O'Bracker, Marietta, Farwell, Shannon.
He's on.
Need a second? Discussion? call vote. Have to wait just a moment.
Fraser,
Aye.
Barbo,
Aye.
Clark, Stammel,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Overacre,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Aye.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Cody,
Aye.
Martini,
Aye.
Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
6,228 ayes, 0 noes, 0 abstentions, resolution 107 passed. Resolution B.
Late resolution B will now be 108, appointing superintendent of highways Kennedy, Overacre, Fraser, Kotnick, Stammel, McCarty. Second.
Any discussion? I just want to say I thought we had two excellent candidates and had a great interview, both of them, and great discussion by the board, and we have a good solution. So, roll call vote.
Fraser,
Aye.
Barwell,
Aye.
Clark, Stammel,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Overacre,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Aye.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Kotnick,
Aye.
Martini, Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
6,228 ayes, 0 noes, 0 abstentions, resolution 108 is passed. Any late business? No. Motion to adjourn.